Mornings with Madonna at the mansion on the hill. Wake up with our gorgeous Queen Madonna. Good morning to you.
Thank you, and welcome to a very different Meetup Monday on Mornings with Madonna. Viewers have marveled at the amount I know about this mansion, but what has been shared so far doesn't show the scope of it all. Today we are going to show an example of the level of detail of our research. It is a Monday, so we have Joe, and Cliffy Poo is under the weather, but he's here in the back to assist us. Joe, thank you for coming and helping us with this.
My pleasure. Good morning, Madonna.
Joe, today we're going to be talking about 1960. Do you remember anything from 1960, Joe?
Oh my, in 1960 I was 6 years old.
My!
That was a long time ago for me.
What was it like in 1960?
Oh, I lived in a big house in Jersey City, New Jersey. So we had a nice yard to play in, my brother and me, and I had my own bedroom.
What kind of car did you drive in 1960?
My dad bought Mercuries because his very good friend was a Lincoln Mercury dealer. So we had a 1956 gray Mercury two-door hardtop.
Oh my gosh, Joe. Well, I've put an envelope in front of you. Maybe you could pull those papers out. What Joe is pulling out is an old ledger. This mansion was a magnificent home for 75 years, but then, in 1949, it was turned into apartments and sleeping rooms. What Joe has before him is the old ledger from 1960 of the people who lived here at the mansion. What I'd like you to do, Joe, is to read off the top of the ledger, and I will tell you a little about each one of the people. Since architecture has been abysmal since World War II, the era was defined by automobiles. We will identify each person by the car they drove in 1960. Go ahead, Joe. What's the first name on the ledger?
Okay, Madonna, you may need to help me because this handwriting is small, but I think I see the name Peterson.
Yes, that was Dave Peterson and his husband, Dick Heine. They were the lead interior designers at Lavoie & Company. In 1960, they were in their mid-40s. They paid $110 a month, which is equivalent to about $1,000 today. They lived in a studio apartment on the second floor, and they drove one car between them, a 1953 Plymouth Savoy two-door coupe, three-tone green and black. Who's the next one on the list?
Okay, am I reading this correctly, Madonna? Gruber?
Gibbler. Yep, it's Oliver Gibbler. He was in his 70s in 1960 and one of the few people at the mansion without a vehicle. He ate regularly at the Forum Cafeteria. It was a really ritzy restaurant that had nice thick paper napkins, and he saved every napkin as well as too many other things in his room. He worked as an office boy for Northwestern National Bank. Okay, who's next, Joe?
Okay, it looks like Hops.
That's right, Emerson Hopp. He shared a bathroom with Gibbler, and they were like the odd couple. Hopp was in his mid-60s in 1960 and was a lawyer who dedicated his entire career to fighting for the Ogallala Sioux Indians. He took their case all the way to the Supreme Court and won, all while driving a blue 1954 Buick Supra. After winning his landmark trial, he treated himself to a Mercedes, but still lived in the rooming house. Who else do we have there?
I see a Hiver? Haydn, yes, thank you, Madonna.
But you've skipped the one right before it. Who's right before that?
Begins with an S?
Yes.
Snips?
Simpson.
Simpson.
That is Henrietta Simpson.
Thank you.
She was a school teacher at the Hawthorne Elementary in North. She never married, but was like a grandmother at the mansion. Her nickname was Pip, and she drove a 1958 turquoise Chevy Bel Air four-door. Okay, now you can do the next one.
Yes, it begins with an H, and it's
You're so close.
Heiser?
Haydn.
Haydn.
Yep, so that's the third floor now in the main mansion, and he was an ad agency executive. He always drove a new Porsche, and this year he had a 1960 coupe. Okay, the next one's easy to read.
Yeah, Thomas.
That's right, Lloyd Kenneth Thomas. He was an engineer at Honeywell. He was in his late 40s in 1960. He drove a two-door coupe, two-tone blue Plymouth Belvedere. Okay, who else do we have?
I see Dobbins.
That's right, Lloyd Dobbins. He was the best-dressed gentleman in town. He was fit to kill. He was the overall manager for the Leamington Hotel. It was a really big deal. He lived in a small room here at the mansion, but his wife and kids lived out in the country. He was in his mid-50s, and he drove a 1957 red and white Chevy Bel Air. The next one's really hard to read.
It begins with a P.
That's right.
Like Peloton?
That's right, Pelletier.
Pelletier.
He was 22 in 1960, and he drove a 1958 black Chevy Impala two-door hardtop. It had the extended bumper with a tire on the back. Who's next?
Okay, it begins with a K. Clevin?
That's right, Clevin, Alfred Clevin. He was 58 in 1960 and worked at the picture framing department at Dayton's. He always drove a new Chrysler. In 1960, he was driving a 1959 Chrysler Newport hardtop. Who's next?
I see a Thompson.
That's right, Glenn Thompson. He was 18 years old and moved from Iowa to seek his fortune in the big city of Minneapolis. He started out as a high-rise window washer, then became an electrician at Ford Motor Company in St. Paul. In 1960, he was driving a 1956 Oldsmobile two-door hardtop.
Okay.
Who is the next one?
Okay, now these folks lived in the garage?
That's right, they were in the carriage house, so now we're moving over to the carriage house.
Okay.
He lived in the apartment in the upper left-hand side of the carriage house.
And it begins with an R. Is it Robbins?
Rekenna.
McKenna.
So this is Donald J. Rekenna and his husband, Burton Anderson. Both of them were interior designers. So they were in their mid-30s, and they ended up buying their own mansion down the street on Lowry Hill. They drove a pea green 1957 Renault Dauphine. Who's next?
Okay. It looks like it begins with an S.
It's an unusual name.
It certainly is.
Selvig.
Selvig.
He was Forrest Selvig. He was a very successful man. He was a curator at the Walker Art Center in 1960 and then became a curator at MIA. In 1960, he was in his early 40s and drove a 1960 Nash convertible, black. Who have we got next?
Okay, the name begins with an R. Rolford?
That's right, Rolfsrud. He was a student at the U of M, a CPA. In his 20s, paying $10 a week, which was basically $350 a month for the room. He drove General Motors, a Corvair four-door. It was a cheap car, and it was gray.
Okay, and here's another name, Clear.
That's right. This one's a special name. Her name was Deanna Clear. She was in her 20s and she was a student at the U of M. That paper I have in front of you is a letter from Deanna Clear. Deanna Clear wrote us a letter to tell all about her time here at the mansion. Maybe you can read a little part of it.
Well, thank you, Madonna. This letter is dated August 26, 2021. And I'll read a section here. When I was a student at the University of Minnesota, I lived in a room in the carriage house from about 1958 to 1960. It was the front room to the right of the building, very spacious and furnished with antique furniture by my landlady, Mrs. Mack. The flowers were cork tile, and I especially loved the enormous carved wooden desk with bookshelves at both ends. I had a sink and hot plate in my room and shared a separate shower closet and a lavatory room with two other individuals who rented rooms, one behind mine and one on the other side of the garage, which was in the center. My older sister thought it wasn't proper that the other tenants were men, these being very different times, but I made the best of it. And this is from Deanna Clear.
And there's a picture of Deanna. So Deanna is in her 80s now. All of these people were living here 60 years ago. This gives you an idea of the scope of the level of research here at the house. Not only do we have original furniture, original clothing, original pictures, original drawings, but we also know about many of the people that have come through the house. So thank you for coming and watching our show today. We'll see you on Tuesday for Mornings with Madonna.
Mornings with Madonna is 300 days. Will be 300 ways to see 300 Clifton.